politics, what ballot initiatives do you feel need to pass to really complete the good year that you've talked about? And that's for all three.
Well, I think we have to see what's on the ballot first, but certainly I believe that Colorado Promise scholarships, 60% of the money that would come from the removal of a special tax credit that oil and gas get in Colorado presently, I really believe that that's a very important measure. We're doing all these things to ensure kids stay in school, really looking at dropout recovery and thinking about how we get kids to the place where we keep them in school. We have to have something at the end of the day for them, and we think that can be and should be about affordability and access to higher ed. That if we can say, listen, the state is going to come in a very meaningful way and provide relief and really provide assistance to your family so that if you stay in school, there's something that's really, I think, promised at the end of the horizon, right? That the high school kids who come out and say, I can afford to go to Metro, I can go to CU, I can go to UNC, because there is this availability of money. That, I think, is something that should absolutely happen. I'm still involved in this effort to try and get the right to work measure off the ballot, along with all the labor measures off the ballot. And I think there has been some other work done to clear the ballot of other things that involve sort of the trial lawyers and other parties, and I think that's going to be helpful. So for my purposes right now, the one thing I'll tell you that I do believe should pass is the Colorado Promise Scholarship. That's the filed initiative that we're going to be behind.
Let me just add to that I also think once we hopefully get those other things off the ballot, that the state would not support the anti-affirmative action measure that's on the ballot. We've done a great deal of work in the state over the past couple of years to deal with the issue of health disparities. My concern is if that measure were to pass, the governor's office and his health team, their hands would be tied in dealing with the very specific issues that people of color, whether it's in the San Luis Valley or in Northeast Denver, face with regard to breast cancer for women in the San Luis Valley, prostate cancer for men in Northeast Denver. That office, their hands would be tied in dealing with those issues because of the way that language is crafted for the ballot. I also think, and I've encouraged the speaker to go forward with his work in trying to figure out whether we can untangle the fiscal handcuffs that are really stopping us from doing some of the things that we really want to do. I mean, the governor and the speaker and my colleagues in the Senate have been able really to work magic in terms of an investment and financial security with the very few, very minor resources that we have. And I think we need to unshackle future legislatures and allow them to work while keeping the heart of Tabor in place. And so I've encouraged the speaker to go on with that and look forward to campaigning with the governor on the severance tax piece that he has worked so hard on to make sure that now that we've got capital development dollars for higher ed, we now need to make sure that we have kids actually on the campus. So look forward to working with the governor on that issue.
Can I just, about the affirmative action measure, I'm also going to be opposing it, campaigning against it. You know, about 3 years ago, University of Colorado at Boulder, its freshman class only had 55 African Americans who were admitted into that class. This is not an issue for the state. We don't have these affirmative action programs that operate in violation of the law. The Supreme Court has really enunciated where the lines cross. They looked at programs at the University of Michigan, University of Texas. They said, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. And we in this state are actively complying with all that we're supposed to do. And so I find it really, in many respects, to be really without much meaning as it relates to state government. And like Peter said, could wind up shackling us from being able to do things that we should do. Our flagship university's freshman class should absolutely have a population of minorities, including African Americans, going to that school, and we shouldn't be passing a ballot measure that somehow takes us in the opposite direction or makes institutions afraid to do the right thing by those populations.
I agree with the governor and the Senate President. And you know, once you're no longer captive of the Capitol and you go back to your constituents and talk to them about what matters, I think that you'll find a remarkable consensus, more agreement in some ways outside this building than inside. Folks want good jobs. They want their kids to be able to get a good education, and they want to be able to get health care if they get sick and soon enough so they can stay healthy. When it comes to, so that's where our agenda has been, this bread and butter agenda, focused on the sorts of things that keep Coloradans up at night. That is where we have put our focus for the last several years in this building, and I think the results speak for themselves. When it comes to Colorado's Constitution, I think our goal should be twofold. One, fix the mess. Two, protect the rest. The legislature took action on at least one of those proposals. We passed what will become known, I think, as Referendum M, which would strengthen the initiative process while protecting the Constitution. And I want to be clear about what this proposal does. It passed the House yesterday with broad bipartisan support. I can't remember the final vote, but you can probably look it up, 50-something. And I think the margin was similarly strong in the Senate. And it says, if citizens initiate statutory changes, we will tie our own hands. We will not change those statutory initiatives for at least the first 5 years beyond their adoption. In turn, we'd like to change the threshold, this proposal says, between statutory and constitutional measures. Right now, it's just as easy to change the Constitution as it is to change a statute, and that's why I think so many folks have taken the constitutional route. Most folks believe it ought to be a little harder to change a constitution than a regular old statute, and we'll find out if most folks feel that way. I think folks at least deserve the chance to vote, and that's what we gave them by putting Referendum M on the ballot. When it comes to fixing the existing mess, reconciling the conflicts that are already in the Constitution, we floated a proposal, couldn't get the two-thirds vote we needed out of the House and the Senate to put it on the ballot, but I suspect it'll be easier to sign on 76,000 citizens than it was to find 44 representatives and 24 senators. And this proposal would create a savings account for education. It would, as the President said, protect the right to vote on taxes. It doesn't touch that constitutional provision at all, but it would enable us to invest the revenues that are coming in over the Tabor limit and put them to work in education. Lock away a share for a rainy day. I think that's important, something we've heard a lot of Democrats and Republicans agree on. And make sure that when times are tough, schools don't get cut. I think that's a reasonable request. I hope the voters will embrace it. I hope we'll give them a chance. In the worst case scenario, if the voters say no, we'll be back in the same mess we're in right now. We'll be no worse off. I think the voters will say yes, but I can tell you this, the voters aren't going to be able to say yes or no unless we ask, and I think we should ask.
Speaker, we're